Hello everyone. We have seen, in the previous chapters, the formatting of our images, how to move them, and what is the use of frames. So we will continue our progress in 3D animation with PTE, and, as announced, we will create our first step-by-step animation, to obtain this carousel at the end of it. For information, all elements will be created exclusively with PTE, except for your images, and the carousel decoration, for which I will use the image of a golden border, which you can find as is, or a similar one, on the internet. Good. Let's start. Let's open our program, and insert an empty view. Using the command configure the view, set its duration to 8 seconds, and check that the option control points of objects proportional is checked. Indeed, this option will allow us, if we modify the duration of our view, to keep the same animation adapted to the new duration, and not truncated or frozen at the end of its new duration. In the tab Transition, select Instant Transition, Cut. This will allow us to see all our animation well when previewing it. Close this window, then open the View Editor, Objects and Animation. For this first part, we will need 2 images in portrait format in HD, and a main frame. So, first, let's add our framework. To have a correct result, and without having to calculate the ratios between the different axes, let's define our frame in square shape, that is, let's modify its size in 1080 by 1080. Then, rename it Carousel. We are going to use it to attach all the elements forming our carousel to it, and it is its rotation that will animate it. We're going to make our carousel go full circle on view time. Attention! The animation that we are going to put in place is planned for a complete turn, and no more. If we want more rotation on the time of our view, then you would have to use a lot more animation keys, because in this exercise we will see how to use a minimum of them thanks to the possibilities of the program. Let's set up the rotation of our frame. Place the time at the end of the view, and add a new key at the time. Go to the tab Animation, and activate the rotation controls. We have 3 axes of rotation. The Z-axis allows us to give a central rotation along the Z-axis of movement. The Y-axis, which we are going to use, allows a rotation on the vertical axis, that is on the Y displacement axis. And the X-axis gives a rotation on the horizontal X-axis. Our carousel must make a complete turn, or 360 degrees, on its vertical axis, and therefore, let's introduce this value to the Y-axis of rotation. If we play our animation, we can see that our frame does indeed complete a full rotation over the duration of the view. Good. Now let's add our first image. Check that your frame is selected, then click on the icon, Image. As I told you before, we will use an image in portrait format. Click on Add, and now our image is added, being linked to our frame. In the tab Properties, activate the command Aspect Ratio, and enter the value 9 divided by 16 inches the line Aspect Ratio. Then, activate the option Main Object, which must take the value 1. Our image is perfectly centered, and covers without overflowing our frame, and, if we play our animation, it also undergoes the rotation of our frame. Indeed, the displacements, sizes and rotations of the parent objects are automatically transmitted to the child elements. Alright, let's go back to the Animation tab, and move our image around, so that its center matches the left edge of our frame. we will therefore move it from the center to the left edge, which corresponds to minus 100% on the x-axis. We saw in the previous chapter the displacement ratios. And so, select your image, and enter the value, minus 100, for the x displacement axis. Our image has been moved so that its center matches the left edge of our frame. If we play our animation, and yes, it does follow the displacement of the edge of the frame, but it also rotates with it, and we would like to see our image throughout the rotation, and not alternately its back and its front. It's very simple to do. Indeed, our image has its own center of rotation, which is currently centered on the edge of the frame, and it undergoes a rotation of 360 degrees over the time of the view, the rotation of the frame. Therefore, let's cancel this rotation. Place your time at the end of the view, then add a new key. Activate the rotation commands, and, to obtain a fictitious value of 0, and that we're an fictitious value of 360, we must therefore introduce the value, minus 360, at the y-axis, because the parent value, 360, plus child value, minus 360, equals 0. Replay your animation, and, indeed, our image now follows the rotation of the carousel, while still showing us its front face. But, when it is forward, we only see part of it. Let's fix that. Either we could modify the size of the carousel, but that would also decrease its diameter of rotation, or we modify the size of the image. It is this option that we will use. Place your time at the beginning, either on the first key, and modify the size of the image to 70% on its two axes. Now, if we replay our animation, it's already much better. Now let's add a second image, opposite the first. The fastest solution is to select the first image, then make a copy, either in the contextual menu by right-clicking on the image, or by clicking on the icon, Copy, in the bar superior. Select your frame, then paste on it. In the top bar, you have the commands, Copy, Cut, Paste and Delete as icons. Our image has been duplicated and linked to our frame, and it is placed in first position, in front of the original image. We see this copy, which, for the moment, perfectly covers the original, because, whatever the position of an element in the virtual space of our assembly, they will always be displayed in order from top to bottom of the list of elements. Now go to the Properties tab, and we'll change the image used. First, uncheck the option, Main Image, because, if you don't do it, as it has the same index as the first image, if we change the image, this will be done for all the images with this index. Now, click on the small arrow to the right of its name, to open your File Explorer, and select another image, always preferably in portrait format. This done, you see your new image, and right-click the option, Main Image, which now will take the index value, 2. Let's go back to the Animation tab, and we're going to place our image at the right edge of our frame, that is, at plus 100% on the x-axis. So enter this value, 100, for the first key, in displacement x. As for the second key, the displacement option is not activated, it will keep the value of the preceding key activated, that is here, the first, and will remain as 100. Our image has been moved to the right of the carousel, and we can play our animation. A small problem. And yes, as I just told you, whatever the position of the elements in the virtual space of the montage, they will be displayed in the order of the list of elements, and therefore, during the first half turn, we still see the second image, even though it is virtually behind the first. we will remedy this. We know that during the first half turn, the second image must be behind, and during the second half turn, it must be in front. So we need the second image twice, a first in front of the first image, and a second behind. Select the first image, then make a copy. Select the frame, and paste on it. Now the list of elements should be composed as follows. Our main frame, then, attached to it, twice the second frame, and finally, the first frame. We are going to move one of the two second images, so that it is after the first. To do this, select the second image, then right-click on it, and use the command Order, and either move back one step, or, as this will be our last image, put behind. So we have in order, the second image, the first, then again the second. The first must be visible during the second half turn, that is, during the second half of the time of our sight. We could use keys and play with its opacity, but PTE offers a command to do this in a single operation, and without adding unnecessary keys. Go to the tab, Property, and we will use the last command of the common parameters, interval. As we want to see our image from half to the end, our end value is already correct, and must be at 8000, which is the duration of our view, expressed in milliseconds, and we must modify only the beginning of visibility and give it the value of half the time of our view, that is, 4000, but, in order not to have a cut between the transition of the front image and that of the back, enter the value 3999, this switch will avoid a clipping effect. Now the second image, the last one in the list, which must be visible for the first half of the time, so select it, then its start time is correct, and at 0, we only have to modify the end value, at half view time, either 4000, to which I add 1 millisecond for the cut-off effect, or, into the value 4001 inches the end field. And now, let's play our animation. Well, this time, everything is correct, the images are invisible when they are virtually behind each other. Here is. For the rest, I invite you to rename the first image, in Image 1, and the second and its copy, in Image 2. Because, in the rest of this creation, we will use a fairly large number of elements, that it will be easier to identify this way than by their original name. One last little thing, let's add a golden border, and 1% thickness to all our images. This already gives a little more chic effect to our editing. Close the editing window, and save your project, because we will need it in the rest of our tutorials. Thank you for your attention, and see you soon for the rest of the creation of our carousel with PTE. Katerina and Patrick.